Yeah, hello class, this is Dr. Stutzman here. I wanted to look at a few things from week 3, just so that everyone's on the same page. The assignments are very clear this week, but I just want to make sure that, again, everyone is going to get the maximum amount of points that they can on this assignment. Specifically the memo, that's the one that I wanted to look at. Really quickly on the critique. This should still be in APA format because this is a academic paper that you're submitting, so make sure that that's APA. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory what the critique is. Now the memo, I'm going to pull that up for a second here. The change checklist assignment. There's a few things that I want to touch on with the memo. The first thing that I'll tell you is the formatting is key. So in bold it says memo. This is an actual memo. I've been teaching this class probably for about seven or eight times now, and it's so surprising to me that only half of the class usually actually puts their assignment in a memo format. So if you're confused of what a memo is, just Google it and it'll show you kind of like some ideas of what memos look like from different organizations and businesses, but this is how you should be formatting this assignment. You don't need to do your APA and things like that. This is an actual memo that you would be turning in to your manager for this assignment. So let's look specifically at the assignment, but again, the one thing I wanted to make sure that you're aware of is that, again, it says memo, so I'm asking for it to be in a memo format. If it's not, then I can't give you maximum points for that. So the first part here we have recommend leading change initiative to create a change management checklist. Another confusing thing, or at least something that students miss, even though it does explain this at the end, is that this assignment is not to write an actual change management checklist. It's to write a memo to your supervisor or to management telling them that you would like to be in charge of putting together a change management checklist. So it's very, very different, both of those ideas. And I've had students before submit actual change management checklists, which is not what the assignment is. Again, this is a memo that you're recommending that you personally lead an initiative to work on and create a change management checklist for your organization. Number 2 here, you want to talk about the importance of the checklist. So why do you need it? What will it do? Here you can kind of highlight it if you want. So if you do want to talk about what's going to be on your checklist or why it's going to be important, you're more than welcome to explain maybe a few things that you're going to have within the checklist, and then you're going to need to respond to how those are going to be beneficial to your organization. So just make sure that you talk about the why it's important, because again, this is not necessarily about the checklist, but why the checklist is important to the organization, at least in the memo that we're doing. The third piece here is very similar to what we just talked about. How will it be beneficial to the organization and the organizational goals? This is a very essential part of this assignment. You want to be able to speak in a way through this memo that you're persuasive. Find words that you can that will help you be more persuasive with trying to get management to see this idea as a valid thing, that this change checklist is needed in the organization. This is why it's needed. This is how it connects to the goals of the organization. This is how it will benefit the organization. This is how it's going to benefit this specific area or this specific area. So think of the word persuasive when you write that section on why it's important. It also talks about being creative. Again, this is your memo. You're going to try to get this person's attention. So again, however you think that works best. However, it is a memo that would be sent to, again, a manager at work. So make sure that it is professional. Even though it can be creative, it still also needs to be professional. So just consider that as well. And then we already talked about the formatting. Again, this should look like a memo with your name at the top. You can write memo at the top. There's a couple different variations of that, and then you would actually write the letter. This is a one-page assignment. If you want to turn in like a cover sheet or something with my name on it, or some other things like that. You can do a separate sheet before that. If you do have any cited sources that you're using to make your argument, then you can put a works cited at the end. But all in all, this is a one-page assignment that doesn't need those things if you don't have any sources and whatnot. So hopefully that gives you some clarity on the change checklist assignment. Again, it is not writing a change checklist, it is writing a memo. So I just wanted to emphasize that again, because usually about half the class misses that. One other thing I wanted to touch on during our time is hopefully you got a chance to look at John Cotter's videos, and there's also a couple other videos on OD management. But one of the big things that we're discussing this week is organizational change. So we have a resistance to change. We have Cotter's 8 steps to organizational change model. We have a presentation of his on the heart of change, which is actually a snoozer. If you've listened to it, hopefully my videos are a little bit more engaging than his, because I feel like that one was a little rough. But anyway, I kind of wanted to look at a little bit on that, where he's talking about the heart of change. I teach leadership at Eastern University, and there's a lot of classes that I teach that talk about, as leaders, how can we go into an organization and how can we change the culture. So there's a few things that I wanted to touch on here, and I wanted to read to you that I think will be helpful. This is out of a book called The Leadership Challenge, which is a pretty popular book, and they look at a model where there's 5 specific things that a leader needs to do. First of all, they need to model the way. Second of all, they need to inspire a shared vision. Third, they challenge the process. Fourth, they enable others to act. And 5, they encourage the heart. And a little bit of what he was talking about in his video kind of touch on these each of these different areas. Obviously, inspiring a shared vision is important, especially when you're trying to promote change. You want to make sure that everyone is on board to the change. It's harder to promote change if you kind of just do it without much communication. You need people to buy into what you're doing and kind of get on the same page as you. We have another section here about challenging the process, and the author here talks about specific ways that you can do that, maybe where you're not butting up against people, but you're showing them in a reasonable way, like this is why the change is going to be important. And that's actually kind of going back to why you're writing this memo. The more that you can be influential in how you kind of word things and show people the connection, the more that it's going to be able to be received by those in the upper levels. And then the last one is encourage the heart, which is just making sure that people feel good about what they're doing. How can we encourage people? But I want to focus on number 4 here, which is enable others to act, which I think connects the most to this idea of promoting change. So how can we get people to not only believe in what we're going to do, understand why we're going to change it, but actually help us initiate the change? So this is the beginning of this chapter here on enable others to act. It says, leaders know that they can't do it alone. It takes partners to get extraordinary things done in an organization. So leaders foster collaboration. Collaboration is a big one. We'll touch on that in a second. By promoting cooperative goals and building trust. Another big one, trust. They develop teams with spirit and cohesion. They promote a sense of reciprocity and a feeling of we're all in this together. Leaders understand that mutual respect is what sustains extraordinary efforts. Leaders strengthen others by sharing power, providing choice, making each person feel competent and confident. They nurture self-esteem and sustain human dignity. So there's a couple areas that we could look on. We could talk about the need for trust, talk about the importance of giving power away. There's another section in here in the book where it talks about developing your talent around you and being mindful of what people's gifts are and how can we fan those gifts into flame. One of the most interesting parts of this chapter is a section called Making Heroes of People. It says, the smallest leaders I know need all the attention for themselves. The leadership of one person is way too small to represent all that a thriving business or group should make or should be. Make heroes of your people when they do things. Put them up in front of people and tell their stories. So if you're wanting to help others rally around you while you're promoting change, it's important to recognize, again, their strengths, but also to appreciate who they are and understand who they are, and then also give them credit for the change that's going on. I've had a lot of situations where I've been asked to promote change, but then I never got any of the credit for the change, and so it's really, really important to give credit. Back to that opening sentence that I talked about fostering collaboration. Again, this is key. Getting other people to buy in, getting other people to contribute to the change is important. It's one thing to be a dictator and come in and say, this is the change that we're doing. It's another to get other people connected to the change process. When I'm leading a specific program, I've done a lot of change at the university that I'm currently working on, and I have a board of students who are kind of impacted by that change. And because they're impacted by that change, I want them to be able to feel like they're part of the process. Now, what I'm not doing all the time is I'm not letting them decide what the change is going to be. I'm usually the one from a leadership standpoint that's telling them exactly what I need changed, but I'm allowing them to feel a part of the change process. So I ask their opinion on what I'm going to be changing, ways that I can incorporate the change, things that they can participate in the change process. And by doing so, you build a good cohesive network where you can feel support. And once those people feel support, then they're going to help you get the word out that this is something that's a good thing, or something that they shouldn't be scared of. Again, promoting cooperative goals, building trust. We talked about that a little bit. That's important. This idea of we're all in this together. It sounds like a song from High School Musical for those of you who have seen that, have kids and they watch that. But it's very true. Like I mentioned before, it's pretty much, from a leadership standpoint, it becomes a dictatorship if you don't allow people. It's a psychological thing. Like, they don't always have to be a part of everything and come up with the ideas themselves, but they have to feel like they're part of this, that this is a journey that not only you're making them take, but they want to take, and they want to participate in that journey. Leaders strengthen others by sharing power and providing choice, and this allows people to sustain human dignity and self-esteem. So in our leadership, how can we pick and choose the things that we don't want to give up in terms of power and decision making versus the things that we're willing to give up in terms of power and decision making? And this is really, really critical to the change process. Like I said, there's certain changes that I want to have happen because, I'm in charge of my organization that I currently lead, and it's kind of is my way or the highway in certain things. But what kind of things can I give up within those big things that are going to allow people to feel like they have some dignity in the process, that they share in the vision and they share in the values and they share in this process? How can I allow them to come up with some unique ideas for themselves that kind of connect with the things that I'm doing? So that's a little bit about the change process in terms of looking at things from a leadership perspective. Hopefully that's helpful as you do your change management memo, as you start using persuasive words there, and also understanding this idea of trying to figure out a way that you can try to promote something and say this is what we need to do, but also trying to get people to buy into what you're trying to do. If you want to discuss this at all at another time, or discuss how this is specifically relevant to something you're trying to do in your current organization, please let me know, because I would love to chat with you. Maybe we can do a phone call or a Skype meeting, or maybe even just through email. So again, I don't want to cut it too short, but I'm hitting around the 15-minute mark, and I think I promised you that I would try to keep all of these videos to between or under 10, so I've already went over that. But hope you're having a great rest of your week. Again, continue to email me with any of your questions. All right, blessings.